Welcome to the Meta Business Podcast. The metaverse and Web3 are bringing about the biggest revolution since the internet itself. With your hosts, Paul the Prophet Dawalibi and Jeff the Juice Cohen, we will be bringing you the latest metaverse business news and insight into what it all means. The Meta Business Podcast starts now.
From the boardroom to the metaverse, this is the Meta Business Podcast. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, Jeff the Juice Cohen. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the official podcast of the metaverse. What we do is we cover the most pressing metaverse topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this amazing industry. For those of you who are new here, welcome. If you're a regular listener, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for leaving a review on the podcast or for hitting that subscribe button. If you haven't done either of those things, please do those things or share the podcast with a friend or family member or colleague. That's how more people discover the show. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Doing good. I will say, it's funny, every time you ask me that, I feel like the most nervous I am doing this podcast is when you ask me. Because I feel like I need
you need something?
And I never, I literally for 30 seconds while you do that little spiel, I think what am I going to say? And I never know what to say because I'm always I'm just still sitting here in my apartment, talking about video games.
I mean, you have a week to prep for it. You do a whole bunch of other prep. Why not prep that piece?
But that stuff's easy because it's hey, the news stories, it's interesting. I got meat on the bone. This is my boring old life stuff. Nothing. All right, let's just cut that out. Let's get into the news. I don't know. Boring.
People kill for that. They kill for the personal touch, that we're not robots.
Well,
we're human beings.
To the Business of Esports podcast, and you and Jimmy, the one with Steve Aaron, said you had 5 minutes of great back and forth and banter, and I was just thinking wow, we definitely don't do that on our podcast, which is weird because we're actually friends. We talk a lot, but
we do.
Don't have anything to say here. But yeah.
You know what was interesting? I had someone come visit the office this week, and if you're listening, you know who you are. And they were asking me about my opinion on Fortnite's latest valuation, and they were asking my opinion on play to earn. And obviously, they're listeners of the podcast, so they wanted a bit of the color behind, my comments on that. And it's so funny because people always think, and I think we've discussed this even. People always think that I play some sort of character on the podcast, right? I'm just purposely opinionated on the podcast. And then when they hear it in real life, they realize, oh, wait, no, that's just who he is. This is just Paul. This is, they felt like they were getting the profit for real in person. And so if you meet me in person and frankly, if you meet Jeff in person, you're going to get the same human beings. You're going to get the same exact opinions. It's not going to change. We don't do this fake for the show. This is the way we see things. So, let's talk about Meta. I mentioned Meta. Let's talk about them. Big story this week. Let's open with this, Jeff. And the headline here is Meta plans to take a nearly 50% cut on virtual asset sales in its metaverse. It's actually not 50, it's 47.5%, which feels oddly specific. I want to ask you about that. But the 47.5% figure includes a hardware platform fee of 30% for sales made through the Meta Quest store, where it sells apps and games for its virtual reality headsets. On top of that, Horizon Worlds will charge a 17.5% fee, and Meta's fees for the sale of virtual assets on Horizon Worlds are significantly more than the 30% Apple charges developers on its app store. So it's funny because Facebook was part of the group going after Apple, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Facebook/Meta was part of the group going after Apple for their 30%, fee, taking a cut from developers. And here we have a situation where Meta has now publicly stated, they announced it in a blog post and confirmed with CNBC, who wrote this article, that they're going to take an overall cut of up to 47.5% on each transaction. So that's the 30% for sales made through the Meta Quest store, and then 17.5% for Horizon Worlds. Curious your thoughts on this, Jeff. Is this okay? Is everyone up in arms for no reason? Is this total hypocrisy? What do you make of it?
Well, it's definitely I'm not surprised that it's drawn ire given it's Facebook and sort of anything they do recently the last couple of years will sort of draw a negative backlash. It is significantly higher. I noticed in the article as we're scrolling than what you see from other NFT trading platforms like OpenSea. I think it's 2.5%. So rare.
Looks Rare 2%.
Looks Rare is 2%. So significantly higher. Having said that, when you compare it to an app store, 47 versus 30, it's higher, but not crazy higher. And then the one that I really wanted to point out actually is Roblox, which, I don't think a lot of people know, but Roblox takes 75% or 70%, from developers. So developers get 30%, Roblox gets 70%. So it's funny you don't see that much backlash on that.
But yeah, I mean, and it's surprising because it's Facebook, right? Like Facebook has a core business that makes a ton of money. This is obviously something where Mark Zuckerberg is investing a ton of money and sort of sees this as the future of the company. I'm a little surprised, particularly because Facebook has been they've under monetized other assets famously. Like they bought WhatsApp for $20 billion like 7-8 years ago, and they have not monetized it as far as I know a dime. And they've been willing to do that. They famously under monetized Instagram for a long time before really starting to ramp that up. So it's weird that given they clearly have a 10, 15, 50-year vision for this metaverse play, why are they gouging customers so early on? Like, why wouldn't they just make this, even just give it away for free and then slowly monetize ads or other stuff? Like, it's very odd.
I mean, you're right. There is a strategy that would say charge nothing. Like I'm painting the extreme that I think you're taking this to, right? Charge nothing and have it be a total land grab. Every developer will flock to Meta because they get to keep 100% of the profits. Like, why not do that? I guess the pushback two things. One, how many developers do you think will no longer decide to build anything for Meta and Meta's metaverse as a consequence of this split? First question. And second of all, I think part of it's not so much a question, but a statement. If I'm defending Meta here, the reality is, what's it costing them to build this metaverse? They've said like 10 billion he's dedicating to this, right?
A year.
A year. And it's the same argument I've made with Apple and Epic, right? Okay, if you're unhappy with the split, go build your own platform. Like, go sell 5 billion iPhones, right? Like, go do the thing that you think is so easy that you should have access to it free of charge or a very low fee. Like, my mind, if you own the platform, you charge what you want. If you're not happy, go build your own platform or go to another platform. And maybe Meta recognizes that right now they're one of the only games in town that matters. And they're looking at the massive cost of building this and they're saying, why wouldn't we?
I think it's a fair argument. I actually don't necessarily disagree with you, but when you're dealing with this like two-sided platform, you said, hey, well, what developers aren't going to build, for Horizon Worlds? Well, probably a decent amount with that if the fee's that high and there's alternative. And the reason I say that is because it's not like Horizon Worlds is like Facebook, where, Facebook Blue app, where there's billions of users. And it's like, well, if you're not on Instagram, if you're an advertiser and you're not on Instagram, like, you're not getting a whole generation of people. Facebook's metaverse, there are no users now. So it's like you almost need the developers to track the users. So when you put up this fee, I could see that pushing people towards more of a Roblox or an Epic, which we're going to talk about. So I do think it's a strategic mistake
to not attract the maximum number of developers they want. I mean, maybe they also think that the metaverse, things like this interoperability between metaverses may be so great that they don't need to attract zillions of developers day one, that eventually they can bring sort of the might of the Facebook users and then attract developers. But the early adopters, they can sort of gouge them, if you want to even call it gouging, but meaning they can charge whatever they want to early adopters, with the knowledge that eventually, if they really want to make a land grab, it maybe won't be that hard for them.
It's definitely possible. It just seems so incongruous with what they've done, in approaching other industries. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, like, do you think this will get reversed? Because there's obviously negative. I mean, we're reading this on CNBC, so that's pretty mainstream. This isn't like GamesBeat or some very industry rag. This is hitting the business press.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. Do you think they'll backtrack? I have a funny feeling they end up at 30%. I think Apple has sort of sent, all in, right? I think Apple has sort of set this benchmark. And if they backtrack at all, it'll be, okay, we'll take away the extra fee. It's 30%, so that no one can sort of make the case that Meta is extra greedy or, right? Because then they can just go, well, Apple's the same. I don't know. What do you think? Will they backtrack?
I think that's actually probably fairly likely. Now the next question is when. Do you think it'll be in the next 3 days, next 5 days?
That's a good question. I don't know. Like it's always within like a week, right? Like they never wait much. They test it out. I feel like they do it on purpose, right?
It's gonna go. It's like, is the publicity gonna go? Oh shit! Yeah. Okay, no, all right. Put it out.
They'll probably have the second press release already ready to go. Is the irony of it all? No, let's move on. Let's talk about other metaverses here. And this one, I mean, I love the headline. This is from PC Gamer, and we're talking about Epic here. And the headline is Sony and Lego invest $2 billion into Epic to help build the metaverse. The subheadline here is interesting. We're still not perfectly clear on what the metaverse is, but it sure attracts money. So Sony invested $1 billion into Epic Games. A separate $1 billion was made by Lego parent company Kirkby. Did you even know Lego had a parent company called Kirkby?
No.
Because I did not. And what they're saying is, I'll read the quote here directly because I think it's interesting. The quote says, as a creative entertainment company, we're thrilled to invest in Epic to deepen our relationship in the metaverse field, a space where creators and users share their time. This is from Sony Group Chairman, President, and CEO Kenichiro Yoshida. Now, this is Sony's second investment into Epic, so they did make a $250 million investment about 2 years ago, but it's first for Lego. Now, not mentioned in this article. Oh no, they did mention in this article is that after this cash, Epic's post-money valuation is $31.5 billion. So a 29.5 pre-money valuation. And the company is still controlled by Sweeney. So they mentioned that hasn't changed as well. Curious what you think. If you had taken metaverse out of this conversation, this seemed to me like a very straightforward kind of deal, right? Epic's all over the place. They're building, engines and game and the whole bit. They've got a little hand in a lot of gaming things. Sony's already a partner. They want more cash. They bring in Lego. Interesting partner just from a cosmetics and Fortnite perspective, right? Mm-hmm. And a creative mode in Fortnite perspective. What do you think, like if we had taken the metaverse out, does it change your thoughts on this investment at all? And does putting metaverse in the language and the release here, do you think differently about it? I guess is my question.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. The one, I think it is interesting that they intentionally talked about the metaverse piece. Tim Sweeney has obviously clearly talked about the metaverse in the past. He may have been one of the earlier people in the gaming space to start kind of using that word. But it got me thinking, you're using that buzzword. Maybe they're sort of, this might be the last round before they go IPO, right? Thinking investors, metaverse, what's buzzy? Maybe that was the point of it. It is interesting because it also clearly means this is deeper than, this isn't just, hey, we're going to put Lego into a Fortnite, skin, and hey, we're just going to do like a collaboration they've done with so many other celebrities and brands. It does feel like they're going to be building, a separate, maybe even a separate world where it's like Lego world. And I think that's a good idea. I mean, they this is actually something I think I tweeted when this first came out. It was kind of like one of the big things that I'm thinking about, and I don't necessarily know if I have a strong opinion yet, as we think about these sort of metaverse wars, will it be easier for Epic to kind of age down to that, like, call it 8 to 12-year-old, or will it be easier for Roblox to age up to kind of the 15 to 18? And I kind of think with this, Epic may be edging ahead in that question. Just because Lego's a strong brand, I think, there's been standalone Lego games. We've got Lego Star Wars, Lego this and that have done really well with kids. So this could be an interesting little arrow in their quiver to attract kind of that younger demographic. What do you think?
It's an interesting thought, and it's a big check, right, from Lego. From Sony, it's pretty cut and dry, right? They've already put $250 million, another $1 billion. They're a gaming company, right? Sony. Like, if you had called this an investment in Fortnite, I would have said, okay, looks normal. Like, nothing to talk about here, nothing to see here. The Lego $1 billion is interesting, right? Because Lego's not like their company. That this is a strategic investment. This is not a financial investment for them, I would think. And so, what's the strategy here? Maybe a Lego metaverse built inside of Fortnite. I just don't think that puts them anywhere near Roblox still, right? Like it's one activation. You can build Lego World. That's it. Like, what else can you build? And I don't know if Lego World is like it may be one of the metaverses that we see evolve, but it's definitely not the metaverse, right? And it doesn't convince me that Fortnite is the platform to do this on, especially if the requirement is $1 billion investment, right? This is kind of a high bar to set. I suspect this metaverse talk here, this is one of those situations where, and I think you alluded to it, Jeff, and I think it was really insightful. This is a cover for something else, right? This feels like what they call a pipe, right? It's a private placement here right before they go public. It's the last money in before they go public. And we got to make it sound like there's a grand vision because they've got, big dollar signs at the IPO in mind, right? I'm assuming, I don't know, an IPO is within the next 6 months. You got to think within the next 6 to 12.
We'll see how the market kind of opens. There hasn't been IPOs in the last couple months just because the market's been getting so volatile. But I bet if the market opens up by the fall, I would think that they'll be public. The other thing I was going to mention as we're on this topic, the valuation was flat versus a year ago, April 2021 round, which, on the surface might not sound great, but you actually, when you put it in context, versus the performance of the public gaming stocks over the last year, it's actually all of them are down between 15 and 30%. And I think Roblox is down 44% over the last year. So I just think that's notable, particularly with, we've been hard on Epic and hard on Fortnite a lot, on this podcast, kind of our other podcast, esports, but good on them for kind of keeping that valuation flat. And then also, they're now worth more than Roblox, which I don't know what you think about that. I think that's, pretty noteworthy because they're, Roblox at one point was worth 70 billion. They were worth 29 and now they're worth 29. I think Roblox is worth 25 or something like that. So pretty interesting.
I mean, if I could own either stock, I'd rather own Roblox, but it's mostly has to do with Tim Sweeney. I think an Epic without Tim Sweeney, I'd probably rather own Epic. So my issues with leadership and where leadership has been focused or at least not focused, because Fortnite is the company that only has the metaverse to lose, right? Like they're the ones, they had everything they needed to build the metaverse, their own metaverse, and have ignored it basically for the last 2 years, it feels like, at least because of distracted management. And so that doesn't give me very much confidence. How much do you want to bet that Epic raised this round because the IPO markets were not, and that IPO window was not open to them? Because here's my theory, and this is, call it my tinfoil hat theory. It's Epic was planning on going public this year, maybe even around this time. And when they started to see markets sour and, not being a great environment to go public, they said, you know what, we'll pause, we'll raise a quick private round, $2 billion, and we'll revisit the public thing in 6 months or 12 months. I have a funny feeling this was not planned, that this was a reaction to what's happening in the public markets, which is also why the valuation's flat.
That's entirely possible.
I mean, we don't know, but it's a theory. I want to put this story next to, obviously we mentioned Roblox, and Roblox also in the news from a metaverse perspective here. And this one's interesting. It says Sonic the Hedgehog is coming to a new platform, Roblox. And so what's happening here is Sega's teaming up with Roblox developer GameFam to release a licensed Sonic the Hedgehog game on the Roblox platform. So you'll be able to play this Sonic Speed Simulator on Roblox for free. Now, the reason I think we bring it up here and the reason you flagged this story, Jeff, is that starts to make Roblox feel a little bit like its own metaverse, right? Where developers can create experiences not that different from what we hear from Sandbox or Decentraland or any of these things, and not that different from what we're assuming Lego's going to do with Fortnite. How do you feel about this story versus the last one? Are you more bullish here? Do you like this move by Roblox, by Sega? Is there a winner or loser here?
I think that this is one, great for GameFam. So they seem to be, they had just gone around. They seem to be kind of putting themselves in the lead in terms of professional kind of developers on Roblox. So good on them for that. I'm definitely more bullish on the Lego story in terms of the size of the investment and the potential. Like, I could see Lego World being a very popular metaverse for that 8 to 12, maybe even like 6 to 10-year-old kid. This Sonic game, I see this as more of like a little one-off game mode type experience. Why I think this one is notable and what's most interesting to me is that it's kind of one of the first examples of like call it AAA IP coming to Roblox. I don't know, Sonic, call it AAA or not, but obviously
at
Sonic
one point in time,
Sonic is a gaming royalty type IP, and the fact that that's coming to Roblox, I actually thought was the most interesting part. It makes you wonder, like, will we see a Madden in Roblox? Will we see Call of Duty on Roblox? My guess is not for some time, but it opens the door to like maybe it's another platform that AAA developers start to develop on. Probably won't when we talked about earlier their take rates 7%, but I think that's what Roblox is trying to do is get more professional developers, kind of aged up IP onto the platform. So do you think we'll ever see that?
Yeah, I definitely do, and I think that's the great promise of Roblox, right? And this is where, at face value, just comparing 1v1 here, the Lego, the potential for a Lego world within Fortnite is a greater metaverse play than Sonic on Roblox, right? That's a very limited metaverse play, if barely that. I don't even think we can call it that. I mean, they didn't even really call it that in the story. Now, what's interesting, obviously to me and to you, I think, is what happens if Sonic's just the first of, 50 other game developers that all decide to move to Roblox and they're all building stuff within Roblox. Well, now you have something of a world that people can spend time in, interact in, that is more permanent beyond just one little, Sonic mini game. And so I think it's interesting that they're taking very different approaches to their own metaverse plays, right? Roblox seems to be all about, I think, quantity and how do we attract as many developers as possible to come build stuff here. And we'll see if AAA developers move, but I suspect they will. And I suspect that cut will change over time. Whereas Fortnite, I think their strategy has always been big name, big brand activation, right? And I doubt they would ever go and try and build a platform based just on UGC, right? Fortnite has, where they've been dominant is let's get the Marvels, let's get the Legos, let's get the giant names. And that's a draw if I'm trying to build a metaverse, but I think it's a more limited draw because it's only as good as the fan base of that brand activation, right? If I don't care about Lego, I'm not going to go into Fortnite. And even if I care about Lego, once I've made my way around Legoland, like what's next, right? For that 10-year-old who needs their next quick fix, Roblox I think has more of an answer for that. So it's interesting to put them side by side. My money on a long-term sort of metaverse play still on Roblox versus Fortnite. And I think to your valuation point, look, they're pretty close now, right? And that to me feels fair. I think the the interesting part of Epic's business is Unreal Engine 5, their new launch, which also, that's more gaming news, so we don't cover here. But Unreal Engine 5 could be a very big game changer if it lives up to what they're saying it could be. That's where that could be the thing that swings the favor towards Fortnite and Epic. So let's do one last story here, Jeff. Let's do one last story because this is a quick story because we touched on this before. Genies raises $150 million at over $1 billion valuation for metaverse avatars. So big raise, huge valuation. They're now a unicorn, right? Over $1 billion. LA based. And basically they're an avatar creator. So the idea, even though I don't think any of this is really implemented today, right? Like the idea is you can create one avatar and it's portable to a bunch of different places. I don't know of anywhere where these avatars are portable. They don't really mention it in the article. I've never used their tool. But all of the creations from Genies are minted on Dapper Labs blockchain network Flow. And you can create and sell, like you can become a creator of avatars and resell them. So there's a marketplace there also. $1 billion, $150 million raise. What do you think?
I mean, the valuation to me is a bit over its skis. But having said that, this is just what we're seeing kind of in this space. And I think it even said somewhere in the article, if this was the article that I remember, that basically this technology is not yet in any games. So it's like the use case, the number one use case, it isn't even there yet. It isn't even built. And yet it's already got $1 billion valuation. So to me, like, we've talked a bunch of times about this. We're bullish on this concept, but to have a product where you don't even have a product yet, it's basically a private beta that really hasn't even really proved itself out yet. And to already have $1 billion valuation, to me, seems aggressive. Particularly, they already raised $65 million now last year. Now, less than a year later, they're raising another $150 million. So, you're talking over $200 million raised for a company that doesn't even have a product yet. I don't see how that necessarily ends well. Having said that, you've got incredibly smart investors. Silver Lake leading it. They're some of the smartest people out there. So maybe the private beta really looks great.
Yeah. The problem is, like, the risk here is, what if no one opens up to your technology, right? Like, and so I'm guessing they've seen, like, there's traction in the sort of behind the scenes, and they're talking to a bunch of platforms, to make these avatars portable, because they're not portable. You're just buying and selling, again, like, just images, really, that are not worth anything.
There's a market for that, though.
There's a market for that. That's true. But you want to know the big red flag for me and why I'm calling bullshit on this is this quote from the article. It says, since its last $65 million funding round in May 2021, Genies, which said it has a 99% celebrity avatar market share. Let's stop right there. Anyone claiming to have a 99% celebrity avatar market share, I would stay so far away from as an investor. I mean, literally would not touch this with a 10-foot pole. Like, what a bullshit statement. Because how big is the celebrity avatar market? I mean, is it 3 people? Is it like, I don't even know what this statistic means, and who cares? Like, there's 3 billion gamers, right? That's the interesting market you want to go after, not celebrities. Okay, you have 20 celebrities who made avatars because you sent this to them. Like, what does that tell me about the validity or this, long-term viability of your business? It's one of those things. It's a head scratcher. I don't know. Maybe the investors are smarter than I am, but I just don't see it. And those things are huge red flags.
So far, Genies isn't being used in games. That's literally the whole point.
That's the whole point, right? So we'll see. I mean, maybe wrong on this one, but I doubt it. We'll see where it ends up, and it'll be one to watch. Guys, that wraps up this week's episode. Flew by so fast. Make sure to go follow the Juice guys at Jeff Cohen 23 He's always got interesting takes. He's always got interesting things to say. Make sure you go follow him. Make sure you hit subscribe on this podcast. Or follow wherever you get it on Spotify, Google Play, or Apple Podcasts. I know so many of you listen on Apple Podcasts, for example. Make sure you hit that follow button or subscribe button on there. Share it with a friend. We really appreciate it. Any review you leave, any love you leave, any feedback you give us, always appreciated. Don't forget, guys, the future is fun. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us here on Meta Business. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast everywhere you get your podcasts, leave a 5-star review, and tell your friends, family, and colleagues all about us. Also, make sure to follow Meta TV on all socials to get more of the best metaverse content anywhere. Tune in every week for another episode of Meta Business.